Hey everybody, it is great to have you back for another episode of Simple Theology, the Journey Edition. So again, I'm Pastor Damon, and it is my pleasure to walk you through this process. Our journey process is always one where I get extremely excited because at the end of it, we get to plug you into ministry. How exciting is that? An opportunity for you to go from sitting on the sidelines to actually getting in the game and doing ministry. And I'll tell you this, as I tell every class, it'll be the greatest joy you'll have is when you're operating in God's kingdom through ministry and serving his people. So we always have a great time. So I'm excited to have you back. Hopefully all of you have either your hard copy or your book or your PDF in front of you. If you don't have those things, we certainly can get those to you. If you missed the answers from step one, feel free to go back and watch the previous version of the journey there, and they'll all be listed together. Pastor Jeremy's doing an excellent job of keeping everything housed right where it is. So you can look in the descriptions. They'll have links to get back to previous episodes and to download your copy of the process that we're going through, your copy of the journey, whether it's, again, if you didn't pick up a hard book, you can get one online. So you can follow along with us. And so the first step was all about learning about the blended church and how we operate, why we are doing what we do here. The first step talks about knowing God. And it's important that that's where this all begins, is knowing who he is in your life. So if you're out there and you're watching right now and you haven't accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, let me encourage you to do that. That's the best thing that you could ever do. And that's what we get excited about here at the Blended Church, is watching people come in, give their life to Christ, and find their true purpose. We recognize that everybody has pain, and it's about working through that pain. So our journey process is helping you to better understand. First step, again, is who we are. There's a lot of great churches here in Indianapolis, and we consider ourselves one of them, but we have a specific DNA as to what we do. We reach people who are far from God, who don't know him, bring them into an environment where they get to experience him firsthand. And we do it through a multi-ethnic lens. We have over 30 nations of people represented in our church, and we're very excited about that. So God is doing some amazing things. So it's about knowing him, know God. The next step is about finding freedom. And the step after that was discovering your purpose, right? So you have to reconcile your past before you can move forward into the freedom that God has for you. So whatever you may have attached to your life that's preventing you from being all that God has called you to be, man, you go back and get real with that. And I know that might be tough for some of you out there, but let me just encourage you again to take those steps to reconcile that past, to do what you need to do. Maybe you need to forgive. Maybe you need to go and make it right with a family member or a friend or what have you. And so you can move free to the next stage that God would have you. And then it's about discovering your purpose. Why were you uniquely created? That's what I've been going through this past week in service. We were talking about your shape. The spiritual gifts you have, your heart, the abilities, personality, and experiences. I'm going to finish the last three letters this week in shape. So you can understand, the way I describe it is your blueprint, your unique blueprint that God created you with. So I'm going to get more into that. And that's what step 2 does. It leads us into understanding your specific design. So let's just jump right in. Again, excited to get involved in this. So Pastor Jeremy's back there helping once again, and we so appreciate him and all he's doing to make sure you guys get the right information. But I am on page 32, starting there, and we going into step 2. Want to make sure everybody's with me here. Page 32. And again, it starts with my gifts and passions, understanding your gifts and passions. How do you discover your gifts? You understand the giftings and the passions that you had. That's really what I wanted to cover last Sunday in service is understanding the different manifestations and the gifts that come through the Holy Spirit that are put inside of us that we can tap into and have access to as God leads. And then your heart, your passion. What are you passionate about out there? What delights you? What gets you excited? What moves you? And so those are gifts and passions. Number two, the things that help you discover your gifts is your life experiences. The things that you walk through in life. God has an amazing ability to help you understand that the good things and the bad things that may occur in your life, God can still, or not can still, he takes them in his hand and directs your path and makes it plain. He already knows the measure of all of our days, and really he's walking with us side by side, walking through that process with us. So those life experiences that you have, something we always need to keep in mind is that, man, God can use this. He can absolutely, he already knows it. So it's up to me to discover how this circumstance is still going to be used by God to help others and to help those around us. Romans 2, I think Pastor Jeremy has, or Romans 12, I'm sorry, Romans 12:1, Pastor Jeremy has that for you. And we're going to read that now. I think I'm going to go through. He has it right there on the screen. I'm going to pull it up. I meant to bookmark that. Sorry about that. Romans 12:1 is where we're starting. And Paul says here, he says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. Man, that's the way I read that is that's the least we can do. Present your bodies as a living sacrifice. There's something I often say during service at the Blended Church is my life is not my own. Our lives are literally his to use and to guide and to open us up. And I think as we continue to have that perspective, it helps us to recognize whose we are, right? It's about understanding that we're God's and God's alone. And so Paul reminds us there, man, present your body as a living sacrifice. So that's always exciting. So my life experience, and then number 3 is my pain. My pain. That's a tough one for a lot of folks to lean into because pain is terrible. We don't like pain. Pain hurts, right? But it's also an opportunity for you to understand that God can use that pain. And something I often say is that very pain point in your life could absolutely be used to be part of your purpose of how you're going to be used in his kingdom. Your mess turns into part of your message. The trials that you go through, the tragedy becomes part of your testimony. And I often tell people that in those points of when you understand what God has brought you through and help you overcome, it leads you into understanding that he's going to use maybe that very situation to help someone else. And man, I'm telling you, I can't emphasize that enough, how exciting that is to go from a place of a wounding potentially in your life to understanding that God is now using this to help someone else. He's helped you overcome. So even your pain is a place where we can grow and God can use you and all of those wonderful things. So keeping going, I'm going to try to be mindful of time this time. I'm trying to keep it moving here. It's easy for me to get excited about that. Page 33. The heading there is Design Reveals Destiny. Your design reveals your destiny in God's kingdom and how you should be used. And you see there, for time's sake, you see Psalms 139. We've said that a lot. We've read it a lot. We know God was there at the very beginning. He knit you together. He put you together. And that's exciting for all of us to know. And we literally are his workmanship. And that's a beautiful, beautiful sight insight and something to think about, that that God designed us specifically and on purpose to do something in his kingdom. Love that sentiment there. So number one, what we should do is discover your gifts. You should be seeking this out. You should be discovering and really trying to better understand the blueprint that God has for you and you specifically. You were not made to be anyone else. I'm not made to be Pastor Jeremy. Jeremy's not made to be me. We were made to both work in his kingdom, but individually have a purpose. So discover your gifts, develop your gifts. It's important that you work on honing your craft, honing the skills that God has put inside of you, and better understanding that. But you have to develop them. Any skill or talent you may have, if it goes too long without being used or exercised, then it's gonna be wasted. Oftentimes, a lot of people use fitness as an example. Man, if you're in the gym and you're hitting it, you're going to develop those muscles. But if you're just sitting on the couch eating a bag of potato chips, it's not going to develop. Matter of fact, you're going to be going the opposite way, and the muscles are going to become weaker. And that's the same thing, I think, in our faith. We should be exercising our faith. We should be exercising the gifts and talents that God has given us so we can develop them and grow stronger in them. And then number 3 is use your gifts. You have to use your gifts. You could have the greatest thing that God has blessed you with. If it's on the shelf and not being used, then it's not going to do the purpose that God intended it. So I think we all pretty much understand some of those, that process of how you have to use your gifts. Man, God has blessed you with a variety of tools that he needs in his kingdom. And he's chosen you to do that. So are you using those gifts, or are you just kind of coming in, or maybe you're just coming into church and you're just being one of many? It's time to absolutely understand your gifts and talents and use them. So the last line there, my purpose is to serve God by serving others. Your purpose is to serve God by serving others. You want to know what you were put on this earth for? It's to serve others. It's serve God and to serve others. It sounds simple, but it's life-changing. If you understand all of who he is in your life, you understand you should be running. You should be giving everything you have to serve him, to love him, and to love others that are around. So let's dive in. The next page that you have, and I'm going to explain a little bit of this. Your page 34 is your first assessment, is your first test. It's the personality test. In that personality test, there are a lot of things that I think can be discovered. Let me talk a little bit about this as we get ready to get into it, and then I'll describe how to do the test. The instructions actually are in the book. Let me say that real quick before I forget. To take this assessment, it's actually on page 77 of your PDF or in your hard copy of your book. It's how to take the personality test. And then the spiritual gifts test is actually on the next page, on page 78. It'll walk you through there. So if you don't catch all the directions that I go through, know that you have them in your hands and how to take that. We're going to get into personality. Personality can also be known as it says up there in the right-hand corner, your leadership style. This is interesting because I think the better you understand some of how your personality type was created, man, I think you'll operate not only in your friends and family and coworkers, but you'll better understand yourself. I'll get to that here in a minute. But sometimes people walk around and I hear, it's like, man, that personality on that person was bad, or they had a bad personality, or what have you. Personality really isn't good or bad. Now, you can have bad character, how you're behaving and those kind of things, but a personality is what it is. It's your personality, and it's how you understand it. But I think sometimes the misnomer of they had a really bad personality, or man, their personality was terrible. Not necessarily. I think we're mixing words there. No personality is bad, and to be quite honest, the test that we're going to use, there's so many different tests out there that you can personality tests that you can take, and many that are out there online. This one in particular is called the DISC test, D-I-S-C. Many of you may have heard of that test and may have taken it before, but that's the test that we've chosen to put in the book for your use and for your discovery of your personality there. No bad personalities. More than likely, you have a combination of personalities as it is. So more than likely in your life, there, depending on your circumstance and the situation, what calls for, you lean into different areas of your personality more often, right? You'll have a more dominant personality, but they're all within us, and they tend to exhibit themselves in one way or another, depending on the circumstance. So to think about how interesting it is, where do you get your personality from? You may get your personality from family members, growing up in your home. Oftentimes I hear people say, oh, you're just like your dad, or you're just like your mom. You know, people say that all the time. Oh, your daughter acts just like you, or has a similar personality. So that's one area that I think we exhibit, or express is probably a better way to say that. We express those personalities in different, and it may seem similar to those in family. Another way you learn about your personality is going through training, taking different personality tests to give you some insight on that. You know, people around you that have a similar personality like you, that may be a mentor. You may lean into some things that click between you, those some mentors around your life. So there's a lot of things that that can help you develop your personality, the style, or to learn more about that personality. One thing I'll say, well, let's get into the instructions here. So you're seeing in your PDF or in your book a list of questions. You see a box to the left, and then a total and a line, and then you see a group of numbers. And above those numbers it says never, rarely, sometimes, often, or always. Now, how best to take this test? What you want to do is give your initial responses. You don't want to sit and read the question and dwell too long. You want to give your first instinctive response there, because if you dwell too long, then you're overthinking it, and the test will become skewed, and you won't get a good result. So that's number one. You don't dwell on it. You read the question and you answer 1 through 5 there that represent never through always. The other thing is that you have to pick a location in which you're answering it from. If you're going to answer from home, if you were at home answering these questions, you find an environment and you stick with that environment, because the question you may read, you're like, well, I would answer that different. I was at work, or I'd answer that different if I was at church, or what have you. Find one environment, and from that lens is how best you need to answer all of these questions, because then you'll have consistency. Okay? So what you do is you read each question. For instance, I'll read the first one. I am assertive, demanding, and decisive. Well, if that's never you circle 1. If rarely that you find yourself that applying to you, you circle 2. Sometimes, often, or always, right? You just circle the right answer there. And you go to the next question. I enjoy doing multiple tasks at once. Again, you look down that line, you circle the number that responds to how you would respond to that. Sometimes, often, always, what have you. So you answer all those questions, and then in that section alone, you add up the answers that you circled. So, for instance, in that first section, you read all 5 of those. If, let's say, you always did all of those questions, or you answered those, and it was always. So your total number would be 25. If you all your answers were 1s, then it would just be 5 up there in that total number score, okay? And then you do each section the same way. You read the next section, you answer, you circle the number that corresponds to your answer, and then you add those up and put those on that total line. Now, you do that for all 4 sections, okay? And then also what I want you to do is in those boxes, box number 1 at the top, you put the letter D. The next box down, letter I. Next box down, S. And then the last one, you should put a C. Okay. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to add those 4 sections up, and the 2 that are closest to 25, or your highest 2, those tend to be what your leadership or your personality type is, or your style, your leadership style. That's on the very top of the page. It says my personality leadership style. You're going to put either it could be DI, it could be IS, it could be CI, whatever your highest 2 are. Okay, a quick note on that, because some people, Pastor, what if I get all the same answer, or the numbers are almost the same? What experts tend to say is that means that there's some disruption, typically, that there's some disruption in your life, and you should take this test again in another 2 or 3 weeks when things may have settled. Maybe something traumatic has happened in your life, or something, you got a new job, or you moved recently, or those kind of things. Sometimes that will lead to numbers being somewhat the same there. So they say take the test again another couple of weeks when things have calmed down in your life and things are more stable. Okay? All right. So the next page, and I think Pastor Jeremy actually has this as one of the screenshots there. It's page 35, and it's going to has a chart in the middle, and in the middle is where you're going to put these letters. It has D, I, S, and C, and the 4 squares there. You already have that on your page. At the top of that box with the arrows, you're going to put extrovert. The word extrovert there. And working around clockwise, the next one is people to the right. Introvert is going to go in the slot underneath. And then task, T-A-S-K, is going to be on the left side there. What that represents is if your personality type is a D or an I, you tend to be more extroverted. If your personality type is I or S, you tend to be more people-oriented, right? If your personality type is S or C, you're more introverted, typically. And then if your personality type is D or C, you're more task-driven, right? Now, again, keep in mind, depending on the circumstance, you may find differences in all of that, but those are typically what you're going to walk through and with those different personality types. Now, on the next several pages, page 36, 37, 38, and 39, you have what I find is some amazing information. What we've put in here are some descriptions of these personality types. Let's say you were a DI. Then on that page, page 36, you can see it describes what those personality types and then what some of the things that may come along with being a DI leadership style personality type. You're curious concluders who place emphasis on the bottom line, and you work hard to reach your goals. So again, not only have we put some great descriptions for you to lean into now the knowledge of the personality type that you have, but then we put some scriptural references underneath those paragraphs so you can go see some examples of those individuals who in the Bible are known to have those personality types. So DS, you see Daniel is there, listed under there, and then we have a scriptural reference there in Daniel 1-6, and it talks a little bit more about his personality type, which I found was really, really interesting. When I first did this and got this information, I was able to kind of go and see who has a personality type like mine, and then seek the word a little bit more and figuring out, what the word says about how my personality type may come across that way as well. So that was really exciting. In class, we usually have a fun opportunity to kind of walk through some of those things. So please look all of that over, read through the different personality type that you have, maybe do some homework or research on the personality type references of the individuals that we put underneath there as well. Okay, so making the most of your personality. Making the most of your personality. I'm on page 40 now. And I read this on Sunday, Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship and created in Christ Jesus to do good works. It's interesting. some of the examples of what I use in class of how would knowing your personality type better help you in serving God or just help you in life in general. I'll get a little bit more into this on Sunday, but one quick example is once I understood my personality type, and then Terry, my wife, took an assessment, this assessment personality type, and we figured out hers. Man, it really did open up our communication. It opened up the understanding between she and I. We, at the time when I took the test, I was an ID, and I think she was a SC. So we had the whole gambit covered there. But knowing that and then doing a little bit of research and understanding her personality type, it helped me to communicate better in ways like this. When we started to butt heads, what I recognized, and this is something that I pray you guys can take away with this, what I recognize is that I was trying to communicate from my personality type. I was trying to communicate to her the way I receive information, how it's processed through my personality. And that's where my mistake was. That's why I was getting frustrated. That's why we would bump heads from time to time. Because she, being in more SC, being more steady, being more someone who, the instruction manual comes in the box, she wants to read the instruction manual. Well, my personality type is I can kind of see how it's going to go. And I'm like, well, we don't need the instructions, and that would frustrate her, right? So when we would communicate, I better understood that what I need to do is slow down and give her information the way she better understands it, and vice versa, right? It's not, I can't have the expectation she's going to understand it through the lens of my personality. Once I started to give her that same information in the way that she could better grab it through her personality, man, our communication went through the roof. Because I was leaning into God, how God designed her. Her blueprint, her personality was made in such a way that this is how she receives information. So I pray that blesses you a little bit. I could go on and on with the examples, but I want to keep moving here due to time. But you need to figure out. So family members, I would have everybody in your family take a personality test and really try to determine that, because maybe you're falling into some pitfalls when you don't need to. You can avoid them if you better understand how God hardwired each person, and now you can communicate in a better way. Okay? All right, so making the most of your personality. It just goes on the next couple of pages. On that next page, page 41, what we did is we put some things in here. If you're a D personality, we put kind of how you tend to be seen, and things the characteristics that tend to come along with that personality. But then we also listed some things, some areas of growth, are what we call them, under that. You might try to listen attentively to others. The D personality tends to be one that's more dominant. You feel like you have things figured out. You feel like, you know, and you're ready to run with it. Some of the things that could help you, maybe you listen a little bit more attentively to others. Support others, other team members. If you're a D and you go into work, maybe you lean into trying to hear some of the opinions of others, and watch God kind of show up in your life. And not only will you be blessing him by giving him honor, but then you'll start to love that person in front of you a little bit more as well, who may be a very different personality type. So what we did is put some areas of growth. If you're that personality type, those bullet points underneath there speak to the areas of growth in your life. Okay, this next section is getting into the spiritual gifts. And again, for time's sake, what I'm going to do is describe how to do this. And I encourage all of you to do these assessments, do these personality tests, because at the end, it's going to help you. The way I describe it in class is connect all the dots, right? You take your spiritual gifts test, you take your personality test, you understand your passions, and then you kind of start to get a better picture of what ministry you might be led to, how God is directing your path, and where you would best fit, right? So there is a purpose for doing all of this and walking through these different assessment. So the next couple of pages, from page 43 and on 45 in particular, is where It's a similar type process. And again, the instructions to how to do the spiritual gifts test is in the back of the book or towards the back of the PDF that you already have. But it operates the same way. You read the question, and there are 72 questions. Don't get nervous. I know that seems like a lot, but it's all to help point you into some of those giftings that God has put inside of you or you have access to. So you read the question, and you go on page 45 and you put your answer in the line or in the space that corresponds with that question. And you're here, instead of going 1 through 5, you're going to go 1 through 3. And those are listed at the top. If it's a 1, almost never. If you read the question and sometimes that's you, you put a 2. Or maybe it's always you. When you read that question, that's always you. You always find yourself in that same situation. You go ahead and put a number 3 there. So you read the question, answer 1, 2, or 3, and you fill out all the blanks there on that page. Now, the way it's going to work, you're still going to add them up, but you're adding across here. That's how it's going to be a little bit different. You're going to add number 1, number 25, and number 49, and you're going to get a number that you're going to put in that total line right there. Okay, then you'd go to your next line. This is after you've answered all the questions. Then you'd add 2, 26, and 50, and you'd get a total score there. Now, again, if you had all 3s in that line, 3, 6, 9, so your total number, the highest number would be 9, or maybe the lowest would be 3, right? And you're adding across. So you're adding, you go all the way down, and you should have total numbers all the way down to the bottom of the page. Now, what you're doing here, and again, as you turn on to pages 46 and 47, each line, and you see the letters there, A through X, all those letters represents a spiritual gift or a manifestation that corresponds on page 47, 48, 49, 50 and 51. Those are the next several pages that capture those different giftings that you put in there. So, for instance, on line A would be administration. B would be apostleship. C would be craftsmanship. So you fill out all of those going down in those slots. So now what you're looking for are the top 3 or maybe 4 that are closest to the number 9 in that list of total, right? You're going to have 3, 4, 5s, but the ones that are closest to 9 tend to be where your spiritual gifting may be. Okay, so again, this is assessment. It's not perfect. None of this is perfect, but what it does is starts to get you a little bit closer to understanding the spiritual gifts that you may have. So one of them is teaching. So you may have a gifting of teaching, right? And that might be, that would be on line V down there. Well, if that's close to 8 or 9 or maybe a 7 or what have you, maybe that's a gifting that you have, and maybe you need to explore that. And what we've done is we've put some scriptural references here as well under each listed gift there, as to where you'll find it in God's word and examples of that gifting being used. Okay, so we're trying to show you in God's word always where some of these things, but trying to give you better knowledge, better understanding of these things that you have access to, that God may have already put in you. Remember, we're connecting the dots there. Your spiritual gifting, your personality, the things you're passionate about. That's another thing you need to ask yourself. What are you really passionate about? Is there a group of people? Was it a certain time period in your life where, man, you found yourself really excited? God really opened you up to something. And the way I said it on Sunday is, if time or money weren't factors, man, what would you be doing? What makes your heart leap out of your chest when you think about it? That might be a passion of yours. If you combine your personality, your passion, your spiritual gifting, man, now you're starting to get a really good picture of how you can move in ministry and how you can be highly successful. To bring a little bit of that to a close, I'll describe it this way. So we have a lot of people that come into the blended church and then they go through the journey. Man, it is so exciting to me to meet with them and to start talking with them about how God has gifted them for ministry. So, for instance, I'll give an example. I had someone who comes in, and she was, through her personality type, she found she was an extrovert. And she found that she, in this case, was an I. She tends to like people, like to be around people. And I think I used this example on Sunday. She had a gifting she saw that hospitality in her. Man, she was already it was almost tailor-made that God said, it was like, I made you to be a greeter. I wanted you to be that person that when somebody comes to that door, you already have a smile on your face. You're ready to talk to them. You're ready to host them. You're ready to hug them, as we say, all the way from the front door to their seat. See, because what happens is that becomes a win-win situation. Not only are you going to find life in that, you're going to find joy and success in that, but that person's going to feel that, and that means God's house wins. That means Jesus wins, because not only are you using your specific design that he designed you to operate, but you're blessing his house. You're blessing his people. You're allowing people to come in and see the joy of the Lord through you, right? So the worst thing I could do is take a person like that and put them in some room and say, I just need you to crunch these numbers or do data or stuff envelopes. That would absolutely ruin that person, right? Because that's not how they were wired to be. They were wired to engage people, to be out front. They're extroverted. And so I would make a mistake doing that. And vice versa with someone who might be more introverted, might have a C type personality. They like, they're more task driven. So someone like that, we'd say, hey man, we might have an opportunity for you in our sound booth where we'll teach you a skill. It's very technical that, you'll be right here. You have some autonomy to do these different things. But we're relying on you to make that happen. That's where they would flourish. They don't need to be out in the crowd. They don't need to be around people, but they still want to use their gifts and talents that they've created, their personality type. They want to use it for God's kingdom as well. That would be a good spot for them. Maybe we put them, behind a camera or whatever, where it's tailored more, that position, that ministry is tailored more to how God created them. So that's how this all works. That's what the drive is all about, is creating or matching the ministry with how God created you to be, putting those together and then getting out of the way. That's when you'll see a smile on my face. I get out of the way and I can tell you story after story after story of folks who ended up getting in. They went through the journey, got into ministry, and man, I'm telling you, they run up on me all the time with a smile on their face. Why? Because we've matched up how God created them with God's house and his ministry, and now the two are working well, and it's a huge win. So that's how success happens. That's how you find the best form of you, is understanding that design, understanding those things that you have in your life that God has given you, and utilizing them in such a way that his kingdom, and that first and foremost, that Jesus gets the glory in all things, but then that his kingdom is advanced, right? Once you know your personality type, once you know your spiritual gifting, once you know your passion, those things, man, you'll look at your community different. You'll look at your neighborhood different. You'll look at your family different. There's just, it opens up so many wonderful things in us. You may have been frustrated a long time because you felt like you were fighting something within you. You felt out of place. Maybe that's a better phrase to use. Now's the time for you to get more in place. Now's the time for you to feel more connected to where you want to be and what you want to do. So that's the main process in step 2. It was really discovering your purpose, discovering your design, and that's where we'll leave it for today. I'm excited. We get into step 3 and then step 4. Step 3 is about leadership. Understanding your leadership. I said this, I believe, very early on. You realize that you are a 10 in something. Some of you really need to hear that, really need to believe that. God created you to be successful. He wanted you to enjoy life, to know life to the full, not just to make it through life. Man, this journey is way too important, and it's way too special in His eyes. This life of ours in His hands. As a good father would, He wants to bless you. He wants to give you the good things in life, but you got to be prepared and understand to know them. So sometimes there's environments in which you need to step into and lead and feel in control. He created you to step into those spaces. And let me just say this, the world needs the church now more than ever. The world is, Jesus is looking for His children, we as believers, to step and be the answer to some of the things that are going on. We are the church. We should be the place where people who are hurting, who are struggling, should be able to come in and help them find life, get them back on their feet, get them moving, get them to see themselves as God sees them. That's the whole journey in this. So sometimes you need to understand your leadership ability, and I'll get into that in step 3, how you're having influence and what God wants to do through you. So again, let me wrap this up and just say thank you for going through this journey with us. I pray it is blessing you. I pray it is opening some doors in your life and maybe covering some things that you didn't know about yourself. The best is yet to come. So I look forward to coming back for step 3. And until then, God bless you, and we'll hope to see you here at the Blended Church.